Hey guys, so right now I'm going to be making the ministry progress summary here through December 18th, 2022. So this is the first ministry cycle since I have launched the ministry where I'm really going to be focusing on new content again. And so the end of last cycle, I kind of decided that I was getting pretty burnt out from doing stuff related to the videos that have already been posted, as well as some of the structure for the website and things like that. I've been on these setup matters for a few months now and just kind of getting tired of it and having a hard time getting myself to finish the rest. And so I decided to at least take somewhat of a detour here through making new ministry content instead, with the hope that this will be something that I'm just more interested in. I'll be able to at least give myself a break from some of the stuff that's more boring, so that I can kind of reset my tolerance to it. And I will have to go and finish the rest of the setup stuff eventually, but at least for the time being, going to just focus on building out some additional written content for the site. And so that's what got started this cycle here. Now, before we get into that, I'm going to go through a couple other things. So as you can see from the fact that I'm just recording the screen here, I'm probably not going to just do the webcam intro and outro anymore for the time being for these ministry progress summaries. One reason for that is because it will just let me walk on the treadmill when I do these normally. And, I'm going to be recording these videos alongside a couple others every 2 weeks. And I'm just trying to set myself up for a pattern here. As I say here, kind of trim down the process as much as I can without really sacrificing things to make everything as sustainable as possible. And so that's one change here. Probably not going to use the webcam for these. I will still use them when I make actual ministry content videos, specifically when I'm using the teleprompter in the future. But for the time being, these will probably just be screen recorded. I'm also going to try to keep them a lot shorter and more concise. I've looked over some of the ministry progress summaries of the last bit. I have been very thorough in documenting the things that I've actually gotten done. But as I sat down and thought about it more, I kind of put myself in the shoes of someone who's approaching this for, maybe new content they might read, or just wider general updates about the ministry. And, many people probably just don't care in as much depth as I do about, all of the nitty-gritty details that I'm doing for making things work right and interface properly. And, some of the setup of technology and stuff behind the content for the ministry, maybe that's just not relevant updates in the eyes of most people. And so, for that reason, going to be trying to keep these videos a lot shorter, more to the point, hopefully under 10 minutes, well under even, if I can manage it, just so that it only contains the most essential information about the things that get done each cycle. So as I was kind of leading off with here, this cycle I have shifted now back into actually producing new written content, at least for a while, as I said, until I reset my tolerance to some of the organizational, administrative type things that I have to do here towards the beginning of the ministry. So this time I organized a few drafts from my backlog, and I selected several that were closer to completion. So I have a number of things that I've started over the years, and even more that is kind of topics that I have in a list, or conversations I've had with others that I can pull from. But I had several things that were already closer to completion here. So I kind of picked those things, and then I edited them, polished them, added a couple paragraphs here and there, cleaned everything up, made sure it all flowed nicely, and then got them organized into the content hierarchy proper. And so that brings us to where we are here. I'm just going to go ahead and briefly show the written content that is new to the website this cycle. So these are the studies that I've added in the last 2 weeks. And as I say, I didn't write absolutely all of this in the last 2 weeks. Actually, this middle one here was completely new. I hadn't started this. We actually had a conversation on our WhatsApp group on one of the Bible studies that we had. I guess it would have been last Saturday. And based on that, I actually just went and fleshed out some of the things we talked about a bit more. And so this one was completely new. The other two I'd already mostly written before, and I was just editing them and getting them organized properly here. But in the future, I may not, have a content production that quite keeps up with this. This was actually quite a bit of new stuff, as we'll see. But in the future, maybe I only have like one thing every cycle or two things. It kind of depends on how long things are. But in any case, we'll go ahead and look. So all of these actually happen to fall into the questions and answers content type on the site, and specifically the self-generated section. So these are Q&As that I have kind of set up for myself in a question and answer format, organizing the Bible teaching in that manner. So the first one we'll look at here, this is actually a multi-part study. So again, this is one of the things that I'd written before, and I just mostly organized it this time. And so this is going over the office of pastor-teacher in the church, and then church polity. So that's the local organization and governance of churches. And so these are the sections here. First one talking about just an overview of the office and how church polity needs to be flexible, since different pastor-teachers can kind of end up doing different things in their ministries. So I'll actually expand out all the content here. So we show content on this page, and you can see table of contents gets pretty long here. And so these are the headers for this one. And then next one is going over a couple specifics of the requirements. So do elders, the pastor teachers, these are the same office as we explained in the first part of this study. Do they need to be physically old, and do they need to be married? Are those requirements for the office in the church? And the answer to both of those things is no, and we go over why that is here. And then the last one is just giving some additional clarification and going through some of the other offices that are mentioned in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11, which talks about, how some are given to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers. And so we go over some of the other offices, in addition to just clarifying some additional points about the things that we had already talked about. So, you can see that here we are, the page ended up getting pretty long here. So, nice small scroll bar over here on the right. But this was the first study here that went up on the site this cycle. So the second one here, we had a question in our group talking specifically about whether or not God's judgment of the morality of actions depends at all upon how cultures view them. And so if you are in a culture that views something as very wrong versus a culture that views something as completely acceptable, does the fact that your culture views it as okay, does that have anything to do with how leniently God might judge people who engage in such behavior, if it is actually sinful? And so that was kind of the question that kicked this off. And one of the motivating examples was this idea of was Hagar kind of forced into Abraham's bed to conceive an heir for Sarah in this story in Genesis chapter 16. And so just that was how the question came up, that was how it was worded. And then in addition to talking about this point, this wider point about culture and morality, I very much fleshed out this story here from Genesis chapter 16 and the interpretation of it, because it's actually pretty wrong-headed to think of Hagar as some sort of underdog victim in this story. She was elevated in status to a junior wife by Sarah, and then actually started looking down upon her mistress after that point, and that is actually why Sarah has her handed back into her care from Abraham, because Hagar was being very disrespectful. And so it's kind of like the opposite of the victim. Sarah was sort of the victim here, not Hagar. And so this written study gets into all of the specifics in that, and kind of talks about a little bit why some of the assumptions that our culture primes us to make lead us into viewing Hagar as perhaps the one who was wronged here. And so certain things about for example, the sexual abuse of women and trafficking of women and girls. Both of these things are, of course, very morally abhorrent, but they've gotten some media attention, especially in the last few years, that very much makes us defensive. We want to be standing against those things. And of course we do, right? They're morally wrong. There's never any circumstance in which these things are okay. But our brains are already kind of wired into thinking about things that way. And so because of that, we might see it places where the shoe doesn't fit. And so that's kind of what we talk about here in this study. So not only this question of morality across cultures and how God's judgment is not relativistic, right? The morality that we follow as Christians is objective and absolute. And then talking about how the specifics of this story and how we ought to interpret it. So how it actually isn't the best example some gross moral sin that would be, different across cultures. So that is this study here. And then finally, this one's a lot shorter, just about basically how do you know which path you're supposed to choose in college. So when you're picking a major, getting ready to prepare for a career, how do you know what's right? And how do you make decisions in this area? It's an area that most people in life will have to kind of ponder to figure out where they're called and how God wishes for you to use your talents and things like that. But at the same time, there's not a lot that you can kind of get directly from the Bible, because this is a matter of application. Different people are called to different things. There is no one size fits all here. And so a lot of this, as you see here in the green section, is just dealing with things that can help us think about this issue without being kind of deduction or airtight logic that can tell you exactly what to do, because it really depends on what you're called to. And so, that's this page. And so this was the third one, talking about, college decisions and career path. So these were the three written studies. This one was the multi-part one, and this one is a single page, and this one is a single page. This was all of the written content that went up on the site during this cycle. And of course, you can see there's a fair bit here. And so this was very much primarily what I was focused on. Additionally, kind of thinking about thinking about some of these recording matters. How can I make this work in the longer term? Thinking about again, just because I have all of this stuff that I have to do with the videos, how am I going to do this best moving forward? And so, I did spend some time thinking about that too, but primarily here focused on the written content, and that was really it. And so, in coming cycles, hopefully I'll keep up the output, keep making new content available on the site, and get that consistent rhythm going here. And so with that, things that I have coming up here, of course, the next couple weeks will be the holidays. So between Christmas and New Year's, I'll be seeing my family and hopefully relaxing, getting to visit with people and things, so that I can come back sharper, kind of having recovered a bit, having taken this time to hopefully, actually successfully relax and, get the stresses of work and some of the accumulated pressure here from being busy on the ministry front here for several months as well, kind of let that wash off of me a bit. And I'm hoping that once I come back, I will actually start getting more involved locally as well. So as well as me launching the actual content production here more formally, hoping to actually start having local Bible studies at the house, meeting local people, getting that arm of things set up as well. Now, and unfortunately, something I've realized here, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this is on the preprocessor application that I've mentioned numerous times here. So these studies here, this one about Genesis chapter 16, as well as this one about college decisions, well, both of these are actually, they don't have multiple parts to the study. Like they're a single page, versus this one, for example, which has, like these, it has these three different sections, three different lessons in the study. And so these single page ones, they actually behave a little bit different. The structure is different for them. And right now, the code that I have that goes through and does things like builds out links to the subject index and builds out slides and stuff, it kind of doesn't handle them properly. And it's just a case that I hadn't thought of when I did this the first time. And so, I am going to have to go and make this work properly at some point at least. So right now, I just didn't subject tag these, and, like the local web server that I have running here. So you can see I'm running on a local web server, and when I deploy this, it'll work fine as well. I just won't have certain bits of the functionality until I actually fix my code to make it work with this. And so for now, just not going to subject tag them. It works fine doing it the way that I am here. But I do need to fix that, and probably sooner. It's because it's going to affect the written content. This isn't just a video thing. It really is something that I should probably fix. I'm not really looking forward to it. I think it'll be kind of gross, but, again, need to keep up with this so that it actually matches the structure of the site. And then, of course, I'm going to keep working on new written content, so the stuff for the next cycle. I have several more studies under active work, things that I've already written pages upon pages on. But I also have plenty to pull from eventually. Like I said, conversations with past people, other stuff that has already been started, many directions I could take things. But I do have kind of a plan for maybe the next 2 or 3 things that I will focus on getting ready to put up on the site. So this is my plan over the next couple weeks. And again, it may be a little bit lighter just because I will be visiting with family, and it is the holiday. The next couple weeks here are going to be the holidays, and so we'll see exactly how much I get done. I am hoping to get at least some ministry work done because, I will be on vacation, but at the same time, I won't be at work. So, hopefully I can spend at least a couple hours every day making progress here so that when I come back, I won't have just not done anything for an entire 2 weeks. So with this, this is where I'll wrap this ministry progress summary. So this was all of the things I got done through December 18th here. And when we pick back up, it'll actually be a new year. So I hope everyone else has a happy Christmas with their families. And with that, I will talk to you all again in 2 weeks.